All right. Thank you everyone for attending today's 30-minute webinar. My name is Mike and I am your host. I've been a systems engineer with Variphy for about a year and a half now. We're joined today by Dan. He's also a systems engineer with Variphy. Today he will be presenting an overview of change management. Here's today's agenda. We'll get started with an overview of our company and what we do. Then we'll jump into a demo where Dan will give an in-depth presentation on change management. After that, we'll take a break for some Q&A. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right corner of your screen. Don't use the standard chat panel. Make sure you're using the panel that's labeled as Q&A. After Q&A, we'll go ahead and reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So make sure you hang around to the end of the event and see if you've won. A quick overview of Variphy. We are the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR reporting, call analytics, customizable dashboards, UCCX, real-time wallboard reporting and analytics, remote phone control, macros and broadcast, change management, as-built reporting, DN, DID, and dial plan management. We have a few different solutions available, but today we are going to focus on the change management portion. Before we get started today, Variphy now offers Ninja Enhanced Consulting Services, or NECS. What is NECS? You ask. One of our systems engineers, like Dan or myself, will engage remotely on a one-on-one basis to provide additional consulting services. It can be in reporting, dashboard configuration, or system monitoring. This provides a dedicated systems engineer for you or to you. We do all of the heavy lifting. If someone needs a report, they can contact us directly, and we'll create the report for them. If you want any additional information, please let one of us know or speak with your account manager, and we'll be more than happy to go over our consulting services more in depth. With all that said, I want to thank everyone for attending, and I'm going to pass the ball to Dan. Let's dig into change management.
Thank you, Mike. If you could pass me the ball here.
Pass away. There we go.
All right. Thank you everybody for joining us today. As Mike said, I am Dan Schmidt, systems engineer here at Variphy for just about 5 years. Today, we're going to be covering the importance of our audit or change management utility. We'll provide an overview of the tools using some real life examples that we see every so often in our support and engineering groups. A lot of times what we hear is that some users will say that they don't have numerous call manager administrators making changes all the time, so that this tool may not be that important to them. But today I'm going to show you how this tool actually can still benefit organizations that only have 1 or 2 CUCM admins. What we typically see here is that this tool is used really by 2 types of users. First type is going to be an end user of Variphy that has a partner or Cisco VAR involved that are doing the heavy lifting on the servers and making a lot of the changes. We're going to show how using this utility can be used to keep your information safe and to really keep that partner or VAR honest. Second type of user that we see using this utility is a self-managed user, meaning you manage your own call manager. There is no partners in there tinkering with things. And what we typically say is that this tool can benefit you and provides a self-insurance policy, really, to assist you in the case that there are any sort of unexpected or adverse configuration changes made within your infrastructure. Okay, so let's talk about our first scenario here where our change management utility really comes into play. And this is probably what we see happening the most. First is you are planning a CUCM upgrade or a CUCM migration. I'm going to condense these 2 scenarios into one topic and show you the benefits of using this tool. Okay, so first, let's pretend I'm on a call manager 11.0, which I've got my cluster here, and I'm upgrading this to a 12.5, call manager 12.5. In an upgrade scenario, first thing you want to do is, just like a virtual machine, is to create a snapshot of that server. Well, the same effect goes here in Variphy. We need our first data set. Okay, so you can see that we've got our clusters here. We want what we would consider a base snapshot, your pre-upgrade snapshot. Okay, so when we go into our change management utility, you'll see a list of previously taken snapshots. What you want to do is execute one manually, or if this is planned well in advance, you could let the schedule. We could schedule our snapshots. So you can see here it runs on the first of every month. We have a number of customers that actually run this daily. So at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m., we schedule a snapshot and we bring back every single configuration within that call manager, UCCX, or Unity connection. These snapshots and this tool will work for all three of those different servers. So yeah, the first thing that you want is a base snapshot. And you can see one here I've got called baseline. So this is going back many years, but obviously over the time span of 4 years, configurations have changed, right? But if I got this call manager brand new and I knew everything was working just great at this time, I could always refer back to this baseline snapshot and it will show you what the configurations were in that point in time. Okay. The second thing that you'll want to do is if you are doing a migration, you're going to want to take a post migration or post upgrade snapshot as well. So you have two data sets basically that you're going to compare against. Okay. Let me jump into schedule snapshots here real quick. So as I mentioned before, our snapshots can be ran daily at a specific time, and you also have the ability to tell the system how many most recent snapshots to keep before we start purging them off. You could always also put a lock on a single dashboard, or not dashboard, single snapshot. And so with that, right, pretty important to maybe put a lock on your baseline snapshot just to make sure that we don't auto purge that off of the system. Okay, so you can see my baseline snapshot locked here. That's always going to stay here. Okay, it's going to be disregarded from our auto purge. Now, when we do our upgrade to call manager, once everything is done, with the upgrade is complete, it really comes to the time where we need to start looking at, did the upgrade succeed? Yes, call manager says the upgrade succeeded, but are all the configurations within call manager what we expect them to be? Okay. We see numerous times where after upgrade, more so with migrations, but after a migration, some settings just aren't the same, right? You've migrated off of one server onto the next server. I want to verify that the configuration set is the same between before I touch this and after I touch it. So that's where a compare utility really comes into play. Okay. If I jump back one screen here, we'll see the ability to run a compare report. Okay. This compare report, first I'm going to show you comparing two data sets that are pre-upgrade and post-upgrade. Okay. And there are two ways to do this. The first is to run it against every single configuration known to call manager. Okay, so that's what I'm illustrating here. This is a full comparison report, and you could see that, in my sense, I basically just took, this is a lab system, so the data isn't going to match up exactly, but in a production environment, you would see things that were added, removed, or modified. In a upgrade scenario, you're not going to want to see numbers here. Okay. An upgrade really is just upgrading the version number of call manager. We don't want to see configurations that are changing between the two time deltas. Okay. If I click on any one of these numbers here, it's going to bring me to the section of call manager. And I'm going to actually pick on device pools here. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down to device pools. All right, and this tells me that 3 things were actually removed. Okay, so if this is a migration, let's say, you're rarely going to see this in an upgrade scenario, but in a migration scenario, you may see things added, removed, or modified. Okay, clicking on this number is going to identify what those things were. Okay, so before and after, you got your pre-upgrade and post-upgrade. According to the 2 different data sets, I see that 3 device pools were actually removed, right? Was that by design or not by design? This gives you the first step in troubleshooting and verifying that things are okay, okay? We're going to identify what property is actually different with those device pools in this case. So I could very easily see that the location A, location C, and location B were removed, and also that actually the Denver device pool was modified. Okay, so it's telling me that the name of the device pool was changed. It was changed from default to Denver. Okay, so again, in an upgrade, you probably won't see this, but in a migration, this tells you one step of the process. Okay. The second part of the process in identifying some of these changes really comes down to kind of getting more specific information, the exact date and time of these changes, if people are making these changes or are they a result of the migration or upgrade. And that's going to all be identified in what we call audit logging. Okay, so audit logging is really just done by RTMT, real-time monitoring tool. Okay, so I'm going to bring my RTMT over, pointing to my cluster. And within audit logs, there's a couple of ways that we could get this data. Okay, and I will say both of this information is very complementary to one another. The change report that I just showed you, or the compare report, will tell you and identify what was added, what was deleted, or what was modified. The audit logging really delves deeper into determining who is making some of these changes. Okay, so you could do this one of two ways. You could auto push audit logging from Call Manager to us, just like a CDR feed, right? Over SFTP, we're getting these log files and we're archiving them, and we're giving you different filtering capabilities. Or you could simply download audit logs right now and go back historically. Okay, so that's what I'm showing you here. The second thing to note here is what servers do you want to be collecting logs for? Obviously, we want logs for all nodes in our cluster. I've only got the one node, but you're going to select your publisher and any subscriber that you want to log for. Okay, the date, time, and date, or the to date and from date is very important here. Okay, this is the time in which the Call Manager system will actively send us logs. Okay, so if we start today, how far back do we want to download logs to? And to the contrary, if you're pushing us live logs every day, when do you want this process to stop? Okay, typically we'll see 6 months out, a year out. This is just when Call Manager will stop sending us logs. Okay, and then last but not least, do you want to zip all these files up? In our application, you'll want to zip all these files up, and it's going to download a zip file to the path that you specify. You're going to basically import that within our tool. Okay. Let me go back to verify here. And that's where log analysis comes into play. Okay. So for log analysis, let me kind of preface this by giving another real life example that we see all the time. Okay. Some may not have the inside information as to what is taking place, but you just get a trouble ticket from an internal customer, maybe saying that their time is maybe off on their devices. Let's say that a user is reporting that the time may be 2 hours off of their actual time. Okay, so we need to see and track down and troubleshoot what could be causing this issue. So first thing I'm going to do is go into my Call Manager, and I'm going to look for this user to find out more specifics of this user. What device does this user own, et cetera, et cetera. So let me log in here. Okay, our report comes from Tiffany Stickles here. So very easily I could see that this MAC address, this device is owned by Tiffany Stickles, right? So this is a clue in using our application, okay? When we showed you the comparison reports before, you could definitely weed out all of that unnecessary information. Your focus in this trouble case really is specific to phones and maybe some phone settings. So in our application, we have the ability to go back, and when we run our comparison reports, to run them under a comparison definition. So we're not looking at all data in this case of Call Manager. We're just looking at maybe only SIP or SEP endpoints. And you're going to build these out manually as you wish. So everything that our system can report on, you're going to pick and choose what you want to see in a segregated fashion. Okay. So we call kitchen sink everything basically, but let's say you only want to see the IP phone registration information, right? We do have the ability to connect directly to each of the phones on the network, and we're going to pool the registration and CDP information, firmware, serial number information, a really good way to keep track of your device inventory as well. Okay. So in this case, maybe I want to confirm that a certain percentage of my devices are actually registered. Okay. Going back to the example of an upgrade or a migration, this is going to be crucial. You want to make sure that after a migration or an upgrade, all your devices that were registered pre-upgrade are still registered successfully. So this is an example that I could show you here. And I will do that here. Okay, this is an example of a report that is filtering out all the nonsense. You don't necessarily need to know every single add, removed, or modified setting within Call Manager, but I really only want to look at registration changes. Okay, so again, you're comparing the pre-upgrade and post-upgrade snapshot information, and we could see that IP phone registrations, there were three modifications to registration status. In an upgrade, that may be okay, right? You don't want to see a high number in registration changes. In a migration, you're probably going to see some of those in a migration because in migrations, right, you will most likely run into ITL cert or CTL certificate issues. In that case, we'll talk in a few minutes on how to get around that, and that's going to actually be using our ad reporting tool. But both of these tools together really can help you identify ITL or CTL cert issues. Okay. All right. So going back to the user case for Tiffany. Tiffany says her time on her phone is 2 hours off. Okay. So we've ran the audit log. We've identified that, yes, there was most likely some changes on that device, but we want to actually get more specific information. So that's where audit logging comes into play. Okay. And I know that this was reported yesterday. So I'm going to analyze, and this again, you could download and import these audit logs automatically. Okay, you could upload that zip file that we talked about, or if you're configured to auto push these logs, you're having a running list here of all of your logging information with your date time spans of those logs. Okay, so I'm going to analyze the first file set here. Within this first file set, we give you some basic filters. The most important here and the most crucial here is your event type. Again, another way to weed out the unnecessary information. You probably don't want to see users logging in and logging out of the systems. That's not really pertinent to what we're troubleshooting here. But in my case, if I'm an administrator, I do want to see most certainly users making CLI commands on the back end of the Call Manager server. I want to see that. I do care about device updates and general configuration updates. Okay, so I'm going to say okay to that. If I suspect that a specific user into Call Manager is maybe mucking around with your settings, right? I could filter by users. I could also filter by the IP address in which that user logged into Call Manager with to really track down and narrow out your results. I'm just going to do a vague search here and see if I could track down the possible change that is altering Tiffany's device. Okay, so since Tiffany opened up that trouble support ticket. All right, I knew this was reported yesterday or a couple of days ago, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit further and start taking a look at entries starting at July 28th or July 27th here. All right, so here I get an indication of some things taking place. Okay, so for some reason, this probably is not pertinent, but for some reason, my CCM administrator account, notice that that's all we're seeing is the CCM administrator account. Here in our lab, we do use a shared account, but note that it does log the IP address. So If it is a shared user account, you could really track who it is by the IP if you had the need to. Okay, but note here that this user is actually making CLI commands on the back end of the server. If you have a multi-layer, support help desk system, maybe level 1, level 2, level 3, maybe this user should not have privileges to be running commands on the back end of Call Manager, right? But here you could very easily see that this user ran a show status command, maybe take a look at some disk partitioning stuff. They did some ping network, commands to see if they could connect to the domain controller. So again, not really pertinent to the information, but that could be a red flag. Scrolling down a little bit further, here I get some more pertinent and realistic information of why Tiffany is complaining of these issues. Okay, so I tracked down Tiffany's device in Call Manager. I know the MAC address of the device in question, and that just so happens to match up with this MAC address. Okay, I do also have the ability, if I didn't want to sift through all this data, we do have a search bar on the very top where you could search for that MAC address, right? So you can kind of see it's a layered approach. The change management reports or the compare reports are telling you what was modified, okay? And using the audit logging, giving you the ability to search for more specific information, right? So the what and the who, very complementary to one another. But scrolling back down to my results, I could kind of get an indication of what's going on here. Okay, so I see that the MAC address in question, Tiffany's phone, looks like a device pool was modified on that phone. Okay, and also someone actually deleted the device pool. Okay, so you can see that location A device pool was actually deleted. Okay, in addition to the device pool, the region and the date time group was also deleted from Call Manager. Okay, so with device pools in this case, this could very well be the culprit. It could say that, hey, well, this date time group no longer exists, this region no longer exists, and sure enough, the device pool no longer exists. Well, this phone had that device pool, right? So if that phone is now registering under the default device pool, that would explain why your date time is probably 2 hours off of your default device pool date time group. So right there is kind of a basic example of taking the what and taking a little bit further and troubleshooting the who and the more specific. So we have our exact date time that this change was made in Call Manager, who did it, and if it's a shared user, the IP address in which they made that change. Okay, so that's the second example here. The third step, while we have a few minutes left here, is in a migration scenario. You have your Call Manager up to 12.5, right? We went from 11.0 to 12.5. Like I mentioned before, you're more than likely to run into issues with bad ITL certificates on those devices. They will not successfully be able to register up to the new TFTP server if that migration was completed. A brand new bunch of certs were most likely put on that Call Manager, and those phones are not going to grab them. Okay, so where we come into play then and how we can help with that is what we would call our as-built reports. Now, this is not part of our change management or audit product, but I will show you how the as-built reports does work very complementary to this too. It's just the next step of troubleshooting. Okay, so in our as-built reports, we have a direct connection into Call Manager where we are being able to pull specific information either live or based off of a previous snapshot. So I would run this report pre-migration and get my list of all my devices and all the settings on all those devices. And then once the migration is complete, I would run this again and really compare, stare and compare the two reports here. Now I've got a report here. Again, I'm on a small lab here. I don't have that many devices, but you can see the benefit of running this type of information post-upgrade, okay? A lot of information. This is our IP phone serial number reports. This is one of my favorites, to be honest. Not only do you get device-related information, you also get registration specific information for those devices. So it's a little bit of both worlds. We're querying for data out of Call Manager, as well as communicating to each of those phones that we find, and we're pulling back all the information off the phone's web server. Okay, so staring and comparing, I'm going to scroll over to the right here. And just as a note, you likely want to run these reports in CSV format. Your CSV format will get you all the information that we offer. Okay, if you do a PDF format, you're limited to a specific amount of real estate, so we can't bring back all the information in a PDF document just because there's no space to. So if I scroll over to these couple phones that I've got highlighted here, I'm taking a look to see if this ITL after migration, ITL signature is going to be correct after migration. So if I keep scrolling, we will show you the port of switch that this device is plugged into. So a lot of the CDP information. We do actually also have in the works to bring back LLDP, link layer device protocol information, into this report as well. So, but CDP, right, very common to people's use, switch IP, switch port, the serial number of the phone, the firmware version of the phone. But in this case, what we're really primarily interested in is our CTL and ITL signature. We want to stay and compare those against a pre-migration snapshot. Okay, so this tells me that yes, after migration, these phones now have the ITL signature of this. Is that correct or not? Really good way of indicating how many phones you have that will be able to successfully pull down new TFTP information off the new migrated CUCM server. Okay, so as you guys can see, a lot of different capabilities and tools to successfully either upgrade your call manager or migrate your call manager to a new server and be confident in those migrations and make sure the data sets between those two jobs are accurate. Okay, so thank you all for joining today's session. Hopefully we taught you something and you could benefit from these tools. Mike, I'm going to throw it back to you for some questions and answers.
Excellent. That's a great job, Dan. Let me share my screen. Oh, you know what, Dan? You probably want to share your screen. Never mind. I'll give you control back.
Okay.
All right, Dan, we've got 2 questions for today. I'll let you share again, and then I'll wait to ask.
Okay.
All right, question number 1. Can I restore the snapshot back to the CUCM for redundancy purposes?
So that is a great question. We get this quite a bit. So our snapshots, and frankly, our application as a whole is a read-only planning and management application, analytics application. So we will read the data and be able to report off of that information. Unfortunately, we do not write that information back into Call Manager. So it is not meant to be a restore utility. It's like a Call Manager backup system. It's not that. It's simply, our snapshots are simply for data analytics and reporting and to help you with some management techniques. So hopefully that answers that.
Perfect. Then the last question. Can we see who is making administrative changes via the CUCM subscriber servers instead of the publisher?
Yes, yeah. So and that comes down to our audit logging capabilities, right? So audit logging will track the user that is making that change, but the key here is in setting up the job from RTMT, you definitely want to make sure that all your nodes are selected. If you're not selecting all your nodes, we will never get those logs, so we would not be able to see that data. So just as long as here you would have your publisher nodes, you probably have a few subscriber nodes. You will also see your IMMP nodes here. We typically don't log IMMP, just basically Call Manager, publisher, and subscriber nodes. As long as that is checked, you will be able to see those changes on those nodes as well. Good question.
Excellent. We have one more question just came in from Samuel Francis. Can you view the snapshot now? I think it was removed on a previous version.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, in a previous version, we did take that off. We heard our users loud and clear that they wanted that back, and rightfully so. There's a lot of good information in there. So yeah, I could view a snapshot just by clicking on the magnifying glass here. And it's kind of like a click and drill down type scenario. We're going to start you off very vague, and the more you click, the more specific information that you get. So I used the use case of device pools in my example, right? I could click my device pool, and see the 4 that were mentioned here. And then I could click details on location A, and then it's basically pulling everything that's in Call Manager in screen into Variphy. And you can also export this information as well. So, yeah.
Awesome, great question. And then one more question just came in. Where can, Laura asked, where can I confirm the audit log configuration with RTMT?
Good question, Laura. So in RTMT, if you go into the job status, so what we would normally do is we would always recommend doing a daily push of audit logs live. That way you don't have to come in here that often. It's just handled by itself. But once that job is configured and saved, you're going to go into job status, and you're going to see that as a running process. So I'm going to select my CUCM publisher node here. Here, I don't have, well, I guess I do. You're going to have a job, and this job, if I double click it, let me bring this over, it's going to indicate the details of that job. Now, this is for a on-demand audit log, but you're going to see a scheduled job type will be scheduled, and it's going to be not completed. It's going to be in process. It will say completed when it meets that end date timestamp that you set on the job. So this is exactly where you would do it. The data would be a little bit different here. I just don't have a scheduled job here, but you would see in process because the job is in process because it has not met the termination date, and daily, that it's being delivered daily, and the IP address of our server that it's being SFTP to, and other supporting information. So hopefully that answers your question, Laura.
All right, and I think that is it. Let me take over, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
All right, there you go. There's the ball.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Share screen. Perfect. All right, here we go. All right. Okay. Great job as always. If you have any additional questions, feel free to contact us at support@verify.com, or you can reach out to your account manager. QA. So we'll jump ahead, kind of wrap this up. The winner of today's Amazon gift card is Randy Moore. Congratulations, Randy. We'll have your account manager reach out to you for your information. I want to thank everyone for attending today. We do live webinars every Wednesday. Our next webinar is how to help with UCM management, where Vic and Matt will cover capacity, drop calls, underutilized devices, and change management. Again, thank you everyone for joining. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Be safe.